Hello and welcome to the Book House. I'm Missy Kennedy and today I'm telling you about a book.
What? You started the show already.
I'm going to tell them about Clifford.
Get out of here. This is a show about books, not a show about dogs. You know, sometimes you read a book and it stays with you for a few days afterwards. Other times you read a book and it stays with you forever. I have the latter with Shaune Lafferty Webb's Bus Stop on a Strange Loop. It's a speculative fiction title with elements of time travel and dystopia, and it's absolutely phenomenal. When I first reviewed Bus Stop, Shaune and I were both authors with Winterbourne Publishing. Since then, Winterbourne has ceased publication, and Shaune and I are now both independent. The great thing about that is now my review is unbiased. So let's get to it. Here's my review of Shaune Lafferty Webb's Bus Stop on a Strange Loop.
You've probably heard me talk about Bus Stop before, and if you have, you probably know that I really like it. But it didn't start out that way. In fact, I didn't even think I'd get into it. It's such an odd book in the beginning. The very first scene in the book is a woman humming to herself as she plans to burn down a bus, using timber from an old house. She seems like she needs a bus, but is gonna burn it down after she uses it. And I was just like, what? How can she burn it down after she's used it? It's gone, it's not there anymore, you silly arsonist. But we soon forget the arsonist and meet our protagonist, Nikki. Nikki lives in this shell of a city where the few remaining people live in constant fear of the government's elimination orders. It turns out that after a long downside and many chaotic upheavals, the government itself no longer knows what to do with its people. It can't feed them or care for them. Depending on who's in power, it pins blame on elite or poverty-stricken factions, and the only common solution seems to be killing people. Nikki, holed up in his city apartment block, dreads there will soon be another elimination round. While he's wondering how he will survive it, he's visited by a mysterious woman. She doesn't introduce herself, but Nikki feels he somehow knows her. She urges him to seek out his lost brother, Ethan, in a town called Rails End, far west of the city. Nikki doesn't really want to look for Ethan, but as the woman leaves and the elimination rate hits, he also finds he has very little choice. Nikki escapes the city and heads out over the railway line to search for his brother. We're given hints that Ethan is some sort of genius who did some very important work for the government before vanishing. Nikki himself appears to be on the verge of vanishing. He doesn't bother to stock the food and water he needs, and by the time he reaches Rail End, he's desperate for both. He finds a struggling creek at the back of Ethan's house and settles in to wait. This was the point I really started to get into the story. The atmosphere of the wasteland cements itself. Nikki sees how little water there is in the creek, and he knows he won't survive long at Rail's End. There are signs of Ethan in the house, but Ethan is nowhere to be found. Nikki doesn't want to stay, but he has nowhere else to go, and he doesn't have the supplies or the health to make it back to the last town. And what's more, in this scene of growing desperation, there are these oddities about the house. About the whole story. We're definitely in the future, but not that far in the future. The house is full of boxes of old photographs, many of them too faded to distinguish. But there seems to be people in the pictures, and a weird sense of familiarity about them. And then there are these references to the bus, its demise plotted in the beginning, but still inextricably tied to Ethan. I found this so intriguing. There was no way I could put the book down at this point. You have the sense that the whole story hinges on this bus, whatever it is, and that's so. One day, just when Nikki is thinking this is it for him, he hears an enormous noise outside and goes out to find the bus and Ethan on his doorstep. It turns out that the bus is a time machine, a highly unreliable time machine. It's impossible to set where it goes, and there's also a good chance using it will cripple you. What Ethan wants to do is escape his time and make a life somewhere more peaceful. He's already made trips in the bus, and though Nikki is reluctant to try it, he's left without another option. Either he can try the bus and risk grievous injury, or stay in Rails End and starve. You might think then that the story is about two brothers who go hopping all through history, trying to fix the events leading to their government's downfall. Not so. The brothers can't pick where the bus will take them, and so they only go to one place, the town that will one day be Rail's End. There we meet the third protagonist, Olivia. Olivia is a great character, a teacher who hates her job. The rest of the story follows her more than either Nikki or Ethan, her new neighbours. Olivia clears up a lot of the ambiguity that haunted the first part of the story, and through her growing friendship with Nikki, she also gives it something else. Hope. After the first part of the book, whenever something nice happens to either of the brothers, particularly Nikki, it's just the best thing ever. Olivia has her own story to explore about her murdered parents and the mystery of her adoption, and how her life ties in with that of Nikki and Ethan. But she also brings that small happiness and that tenuous thread of hope, and in a story that promises to be so bleak, there's just something enchanting about that. So while that jarring opening sends shockwaves through the first part of the story, it does so undeservedly. Bus Stop is just fantastic, potent, deep, and towards the end, devastating. Shaune never wastes a word. The pacing is gentle but constantly active, and there's this great undercurrent of things happening that are so beyond the comprehension of the characters, let alone their ability to change. From that bleak opening, to the gentle, intriguing innards of the story, to that gut-wrenching ending, Bus Stop on a Strange Loop is a deft and exceptional book no speculative fiction fan should miss.
And that was my review for Bus Stop on a Strange Loop. And now I have to go and think about my life for a while.
That's it for the Book House this week. Join us again next week when we'll have my favourite book of all time, Clifford the Big Red Dog. Oh, you're so handsome, Clifford. Be mine.
Te vienen buscando.